Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Micah Stevens and this is Emmett Stevens if you are not already acquainted. Today we're going to be talking about wing detangling. It's one of those topics that can really frustrate a newer pilot as they get out to their field, the sun's setting in 20 minutes, and you're trying to get in the air before your window closes. We're all familiar with putting our headphones in our pocket and then pulling them out to a jumbled, tangled mess. And that is exactly what happens with our lines on our glider sometimes. So this video is dedicated towards sorting those lines out and getting in the air a little bit quicker. And as always, guys, I have to disclaim that I am not here to replace in-person instruction. Please go get reputable, professional training from an instructor who is USPPA rated, knows what they're doing, and cares about you as a human being. I highly recommend Aviator PPG down in Lake Wales, Florida, where I've been teaching for the last 3.5 years. They really have a great curriculum set up to take you from crawling to running. All right? So before we get into the video, make sure you're subscribed to this content, give it a like, and comment down below what your thoughts are at the end of the video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on my forehead here to detangle some lines. Okie dokie, guys, welcome to my forehead first and foremost. Let's go ahead and jump into detangling our lines. A precursor to this line detangling event is referencing the last two videos we talked about, both open space and glider layout, which we don't have a whole lot of here. I don't think launching here would work very well, but alas, we're doing wing detangling. We're not getting ready to fly, and I needed some shade because it's a harsh time of day for lighting. Still pretty harsh on the wing. I apologize for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and do some line detangling. The first detangling event I will do is a very mild, realistic case of line detangling. So I got my wing laid out roughly. As I mentioned in my last video, we roughly get the wing laid out, then we sort out our risers and lines, and then we go back to the wing to detail it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my lines here. I'm going to start by holding my riser nice and high up in the air and pulling some tension into the riser. As I do this, I can see my riser and how it connects to the wing and what happens in between. The first thing I'm noticing here is my brake line. The brake line is colored a bright yellow color on ozone gliders for a great reason, and that is to see where my riser twists and how many times it twists. So I can see that the brake line comes over all the other lines at least 3 times. Maybe 1, 2, 3. It twists in a counterclockwise fashion, so I'm going to turn my riser clockwise a couple of times, starting right at the bridle here. So already I can see a difference in my riser. I'm going to do it one more time. Before I get too carried away here, what I want to do is actually come to my brake lines and try to pull them down and away to kind of start the separation from the rest of my lines. And I can see that I actually twisted my riser clockwise one too many times because the A's right here are going underneath all of the other lines. So I actually need to turn it back counterclockwise one time, and that looks a lot better. It still needs some work though. So again, we're going to come to our brakes and we're going to go from a bottom to top fashion with these lines. So I'm going to go right to my brake lines here. This is my tip line coming out of the pulley. This is my main brake line going to the entire trailing edge of my glider, starting right at the pulley here. And I'm going to pull down and away on these guys and then towards me to get the lines. If there were brake lines over stuff, that will sort out from there, but there is no issue there. So we're going to go to the next ones, which are our D's on our rear riser right here. We're going to start right at the soft link malleon, this guy. And we're going to pull down and away, and then towards me as well. I like to pull towards me to pull tension, and that will sort of help the lines come off of each other. All right, so the D's look good. Now we're going to go to the C's, these purple lines here. And I can see that the C's, si senor, going over some of the B's. So this is a B line here. I've got a C line going up and over, and then even over an A as well. So all I'm going to do, it's super easy. It takes all about 3 seconds. You're going to find your hand or your finger right next to the malleon where the C's begin, and you're going to pull straight down and then towards you, and you can see the effect. It's kind of like a peeling effect that it has. And now our riser, including our lines, is all nice and square and straight. All of the lines are arcing towards the wing, and by holding this riser up high, I can really see that happen nicely. I'm switching hands now, because when I do this line detangling, I like to stand on the outside of my riser, just personal preference, and I like to use my outside hand to kind of detail. Pass it back to my left hand, and I'll step in, give some slack, and lay it down with the brakes to the inside, A's to the outside, taking my time to diligently square up my risers. Okay, that's a mild case. Now, let's do something a little bit more extreme. If this gives you anxiety, I'm sorry, but I'll show you just how easy line detangling can be. You pull your wing out, you got 20 minutes till sunset, and we've got quite the mess here. But we've got the process, so let's go through the process. I'm going to start with the brakes. I'm going to pull these brakes down and away. And that's not really working. So what we're going to do is find where the brakes cross over the A's. So I can see that the brakes are coming over the A's. When I pull the brakes down and away, that doesn't really help me. So it could infer that there's actually a twist in the riser. So let me try that. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this guy around. And that seems to have made it worse. Whenever it seems to have been made worse, you want to go ahead and undo what you did. Control Z. Then we're going to figure out where these brakes are actually routing to. And we can see that the brakes are coming over the A's. I'm going to follow the A's to where I have lines going over my A's, and I'm going to try to bookend on my A's where the lines are coming over. All right, and now all you're going to do is pass the whole riser. See how I'm taking my hand and I'm going to grab the entire riser and pull it through all of that other stuff that was going over my A's. Let's go back, pull some tension into these lines. Start with my brakes, pull these guys down and away, and then towards me. My D's down and away and towards me. C's down and away and towards me. B's down and away towards me. And then last but not least, checking the A's, making sure they're on top of everything else. And that's a big green check mark. So even though I just tossed my riser into that jumbled mess of lines and pulled them out any which way, it took me all about 1.5 minutes, if I weren't talking to a camera, to really sort all of that out. Let's do it again, but let's do a more extreme case. All right, so in this example, you stowed the glider away, but you didn't marry the heads of the risers together. And now you've got not only lines twisted up, but risers really mucked up into each other. Let's go under there, through there. You pull your lines apart, your risers apart, or you try to, and you realize, uh-oh, this is not looking so good. I really should have put my bridles together when I stowed this wing away. This is kind of the nightmare scenario, right? But what we want to do is we are going to collect all of the lines starting from a riser, and you're going to slide your hand along these lines until you figure out where in this jumbled mess of lines these lines are coming through. And of course the wind is picking up now. To add insult to injury, we now have a lot of wind. But alas, the show must go on, folks. No, you stay on the ground. When it rains, it pours, guys. When it rains, it pours. Okay, so I've got all the lines on my right riser going through this loop right in here. So I'm gonna grab all of my lines and pull my whole riser through this loop. And this is just taking things one small step at a time. So looking at this, I can now see that the right riser connects to all my lines and goes up and through and over the left riser lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in, I'm going to grab all these lines, I'm going to set this riser down for a second. I'm going to reach through and I'm going to grab all of these lines and I'm going to pull it in and through. Separate this guy as much as possible. And let's see if we're making progress here. I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to grab all the lines on this riser and pass my hand all the way through the jumbled mess. And I can see that these lines going over my arm, this riser needs to go through those lines. So I'm going to do that, separate them, and we now have separate risers. Awesome. Now I can see that the brake lines are coming over my A's, which means I've got a, looks like a clockwise twist, so I'm going to do a counterclockwise flip. A's on the top. Let's go to the brake lines. I'm doing the left riser now, so I'm going to hold up my left hand, starting at the brakes with my right hand. I'm going to pull down and away and towards me. Get that trailing edge out a little bit. So look at that. We did it. I know it's kind of hard to see on video exactly what's happening when I separate those lines, but hopefully you get the gist. All peachy keen. Now we're going to do a horrific case. So I'm going to throw that onto the wing. We're going to pass it through here. We're going to pass it through these lines. Throw it over the wing. You manage to get it crossed underneath the wing, back through lines. You pull it out of the glider bag and it looks something like this. At this point, just start cutting your lines off. This is a really used wing, so I don't really care about it. That's pretty much your only solution at this point. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. First things first, let's identify where all of our lines are going to. Looks like underneath the wing. And the best thing to do actually is to spread out your wingtip again. Pull your wingtips out just like you would set up your wing normally. And I can see that all of my lines are coming underneath the wing. So I'm just gonna grab these lines, pull the riser out and through, and then we'll pass them back over the wing. All right, we're gonna pull tension into our riser and we're gonna check for twists. I'm not seeing any obvious twists up here. There might be one up farther towards the wing there, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna assess that tangle up there. So what I'm gonna do, a pro tip if you can, bring the wing to your car and close the car door on your bridle, and that'll kind of hold your lines up. That's one strategy you can use. What I'm just gonna do here is I'm gonna go towards this tangled mess and I'm just going to assess, all right? And what I'm gonna look for are my A's coming from my leading edge going to the riser. And I can see all of these A's kind of go to different directions. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna choose one. Follow this, I'm gonna follow these two lines to this line. It joins a cascading line and then it continues towards the riser. And now I'm just gonna pull the whole riser through this mess of lines right here using this single A. I know it feels disgusting when you're doing this. It doesn't give you the warm and fuzzy, but nonetheless, this is the technique. I learned this from Judson Graham, by the way, who is crushing it at the moment. Shout out to Judson Graham. Good work living your dreams, man. You are an inspiration. So I'm just pulling that whole riser through, and then I'm going to pull tension and see where we are at. I'm going to lift these A's up, and as you can see, we've made it worse. No, I'm just kidding. It is better, but not clearly better yet. So I'm going to do that a couple more times. I'm going to separate these two A's from each other, and let's set the riser down again. And let's check our A's. Let's choose an A. We'll choose the same A. This A right here. We'll find where it cascades. And we'll join that cascade into that single riser line, the line that goes singularly to the riser, and I'm going to pull the whole riser through this loop. And of course the wind's picking up, just making it harder for me. I need that, you know? All right, so what's the sequence? We're gonna go make sure we don't have any lines over our A's, meaning that there's no twist in the glider. So I've got these two A's that are clear, but then this third A has lines over it. So this is a really good example. We're going to pass the risers underneath these A's, press the bridle underneath these A's, countering this twist happening here. So because this twist is counterclockwise, I'm going to pass the riser from the inside of my lines. In other words, in between the two risers. This would be from the outside, but I'm actually going to go from the inside of my risers, underneath these A's, and twist like so. We're going to step on the outside, check our A's again, and now the A's are on the top. Sweet. That is a huge mission accomplished. Let's go to our brakes. Pull these guys down and away, try to get that trailing edge out, or at least tug towards me. Start at our D's now. Make sure that our lines are clear on the D's. It's hard to tell because our wing isn't laid out, and that's a good point. If your wing is not laid out roughly, it's going to be harder to do this job here. So C's, B's, and A's finally. Double checking the A's. And that is a sorted out set of lines and risers, right, Amelia? Good girl. Oh, go get it. What was that? There we have it. Those are all the main scenarios that you will find with your glider being twisted up. The moral of the story is take your time, be patient, and trust the process. All right, and that's today's video, folks. I hope this adds value to you, gets you in the air a little bit more efficiently and effectively, and these lines have a harder time slowing you down in the process of getting in the air. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button. I'm really excited that this channel is growing the way it is so far, and I'm looking forward to making future videos. Stay tuned for the next one where we will talk all about clipping into our glider, forward and reverse, as well as some bonus hand kiting material. If you are interested in taking your paramotor progression to the next level, go ahead and check me out on Patreon, where I offer some unique benefits, and you can get connected with me one-on-one, and we can talk about where you're at in the sport and how to progress mentally as well as physically. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.